Hello and welcome. I am Scrubberlock, and this is Planet Zoo. We're going to do a Let's Play in the game Planet Zoo, which is relatively new. It came out last fall, I guess, from early access to full release. It's had a couple of DLCs. I've got them all. It cost me about 75 bucks on Steam to get everything. Nothing was on sale. Obviously, if you want to do it efficiently, you should wait till these things go on sale. So Planet Zoo. This is made by Frontier Development. They're actually the successors to the company that Frontier that made Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, one of my very favorite games of all time. They've also made Planet Coaster, which I haven't played. When that first came out, it was kind of panned a little bit. Since then, it's apparently become quite a good game. But since this is newer and I'm trying to push my graphics card a little bit, although I don't think this game's going to push it much, I decided to go for the newer game. Also, I love animals. I'm a zoologist by trade, so I think this is going to be really fun. Although, in a fit of irony, I set all of the measurements in this game to English rather than metrics. Even though I'm a scientist, I still prefer the English system when I'm not doing science and being casual about things. So we have our avatar here, and I placed it in my home area of the eastern United States. And we're going to be building zoos and trying to get visitors to come into zoos and give us money and donate to us so that we can use the money to buy more exhibits and buy animals. And we're going to try to be green and get conservation points and release animals to the wild when they're ready and all these good things. So there are 4 different modes to play for Planet Zoo: Career, Franchise, Challenge, and Sandbox. So the Career mode is where you go through a series of zoos that they have started for you, and then you finish them, and there are goals, and you get bronze, silver, and gold stars for going through these missions essentially and completing the tasks that they set for you. And once you get the gold star, you're ready to move on. I mean, you can actually do the entire career by just getting bronze star. The bronze star unlocks the next mission, and I'll show you that in a minute. But I'm going to try to go for gold star in every one of these. The second mode is franchise mode. In franchise mode, what you're doing is you're owning a giant chain of zoos. You can start with a single zoo anywhere in the world, and the goal is to have, I think, for the achievement, 25 franchises of your chain all over the world of different zoos. So you start with one zoo, and you try to make enough money from that zoo to build a second zoo, and then make enough money from those 2 zoos to build a third and a fourth. And my guess is it's a very, very long game to do franchise mode, because if you're going to build 25 zoos and you're basically doing it semi-sandbox, you've got to pay attention to money, but you can put whatever you want in each zoo, depending on what's available, depending on what works for each region. To me, that sounds like something that could go a really long time, because you're not focused on individual goals. You're just trying to make a bunch of really gloriously beautiful zoos. Challenge mode, I'm not sure how that works, because I haven't seen anybody play it, but I think there are specific challenges. It's a little harder than career mode, and you're just trying to complete the challenge. And then finally, sandbox mode is where there are no limitations. Everything's unlocked. All of the animals, all the plants, all of the exhibits are unlocked, and you can put whatever you want in there, and there's no limit on money. You just have unlimited resources to build the most beautiful zoo you could ever want. So I'm going to probably try all of these different modes. We're going to start with career mode, because that's what gives you the tutorial and teaches you how to play the game. So let's go into career mode. One other thing I do want to say before we go to career mode, actually, talk about the settings. And one of the things I want to talk about is the controls and also the character avatar. This avatar, this picture is not the avatar on this planet, right? This is a different avatar with glasses and stuff. This picture came from Steam. This is my Steam ID. I changed it for this recording, so just be aware that when you play this game, if you bought it through Steam, it's going to show your Steam login name here. So if you don't want other people to know, say, your email address, don't use your email address as your Steam login name. So I changed my old Steam login name to Scrapperlock yesterday so that it would show up this way and fit for this channel. So just be aware of that, and I think you can also turn off the showing of the name. The other thing is, and this confused me as well, in terms of the game, you can have avatar zoo visitors. This is other player avatars can be guests in your zoo. Now, what I thought this meant was that other people playing the game, and I didn't see anywhere to do this, because there isn't anywhere to do this, I think, but other people playing the game, I thought, could visit your zoo and walk around. But after looking it up, it sounds like that's not true. What's actually happening is that it's taking your avatar, copying it into somebody else's game with your name, but it's just running around as an NPC. The person whose avatar it is isn't watching your zoo. So you can do it however you want. I have that disabled, and they had them walking around anyway, which is sort of weird. But it shouldn't cause anybody to be walking around your zoo. Okay, so that's the settings, and let's go into career mode. So I've already done this a little bit. I was playing around to see how the game works, and ultimately you can get 42 stars, which is counting bronze, silver, gold in every scenario. You can see that I did the bronze and the silver, and that unlocked these two, and these are tutorial levels. And then there's also a couple of new ones, the Arctic Research Park and Global Warning, which are part of the Arctic adventures. But we're going to go back, we're going to start with the Goodwin house, and we're going to do career mode that way. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that I very much enjoy building, sculpting, and crafting 3D areas like a roller coaster park or a zoo. And so I'm not going to just go about the challenge doing the bare minimum. I'm going to try to make it pretty and realistic and reasonable for a zoo habitat. All right, a lot of these things, and you can watch people doing this on their Let's Plays, it says you got to have 6 animals, different animals in the park, and they've got 5, and all they need is that 6th one to get the gold star. They'll just buy an animal, throw it into any habitat, even if it's inappropriate, because the second the animal's in there, they get the gold star, and it's over. I wouldn't do that. I'm going to actually build that animal a habitat. However, in the tutorial levels, they don't have enough unlocked that you can really do that. So in this first couple of tutorials, I may not be able to do aesthetically pleasing things. But you will see what an aesthetically pleasing zoo looks like when we start our new game. Now, I don't know if it's going to start me out having the bronze and the silver already done. I'm hoping not. We're going to start new. There are 3 difficulty levels, easy, medium, hard. I'm going to do it on medium because I haven't played the game before. Easy is probably way too easy. Hard might be fine, but let's go ahead and do it on medium and we'll see. There is an achievement for doing all of these on hard. So if I find out that medium is too easy after a few of them, I might switch it to hard, do all the rest on hard, and then off screen go back and finish these last few, do them over again on hard so that I get the achievement. But for right now, we're just going to work on doing the medium tutorial and see how the game works. So here we go into the Goodwin house. And so this is going to show you a very nicely designed zoo that we're just going to add a little bit to, so that you learn how to do things like build habitats for animals, place donation bins for people to give you donations, place an education plaque to teach people about the animal in the exhibit, and that sort of thing. So here we go. We are entering the first zoo. And all the little people, you can see, they used to call them peeps in Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Heyo at Hematu. Yeah. Oh.
And this is Bernie Goodwin, who's the owner of these zoos.
I have a habit of...
And we're kind of his protege.
Blanco language. It's good to finally meet you in person. I'm Bernard, although I insist you call me Bernie. The only person who calls me Bernard is my wife. And even then, only when I've tracked elephant dung into the carpets.
See some lemurs running around there on their exhibit?
As you know, I own several zoos, but I always like to show people the ropes here at my home. This is the first zoo I ever opened, and a source of great pride for me. And prides, thanks to a lion breeding program we ran in the 80s. But we're in the middle of a big renovation, and that's where you come in. Sadly, our old contractor had to retire after developing a fur allergy. Poor devil kept sneezing his dentures into the lion habitat. So, it's up to you to finish everything off. Don't worry, though. I'm not completely throwing you into the deep end.
The zebras, very cool.
My head keeper, Nancy Jones.
And there's an education plaque for the wolf, you can see.
Oh, she's a
and there's
hard
wolf
worker,
playing in the background.
and she'll expect you to be too. But
look
I'm
how
sure
beautiful
you'll get
this
along
is.
like a house on fire. Or
Very
even
nicely
better,
designed.
One that isn't on fire. Less shouting.
Looks like a
that
balloon
way.
floating. Somebody lost their balloon.
Hello
So
there.
there's our
From that
tutor,
rosy,
Nancy.
fresh face of yours, I'm guessing you're Bernie's new hire. Good. Now, I hope you're ready to ditch your diploma because we're about to get really hands-on. But before we begin the real work, how about we familiarize you with the zoo by learning how to fly around it and visiting some of our beautiful animals? We'll start by popping over and having a look-see at the grizzly bears in their habitat.
Okay, so controls. The center mouse button, if you press the mouse wheel, allows you to spin. Scrolling the mouse wheel zooms you in and out. This is the habitat she wants us to look at, but we're not going to go in there yet. Holding the left mouse, the right mouse button, and moving the mouse pans the camera. And the left mouse lets you click on things. Now, one thing you can see here is this is very nicely designed. And one of the points that I made early on when we were starting this is that I want to do nice design like this. So this beautiful little pond in here, that's not required for the zoo to function, but it looks pretty. In here we have benches and tables and that sort of thing. You don't need to surround the benches with all of this nice prettiness. You could just lay them out in the park on the grass. People will still use them, but it looks a lot nicer to have it be like this. You can see there are caretakers dealing with the trash here, and so you have staff and everything, and they're going to teach us about all of that. But right now what they want us to do is explore the zoo and find the grizzly bear habitat, which is right here.
Did you know that grizzly
found it.
bears, also known as Ursus arctos horribilis, can hibernate for up to 7 months a year? Oh, but then again, given the chance, I think a lot of people would
I'd
do
be
that
happy
too.
to hibernate for 7 months of the
Select one
year.
of the bears and you'll bring up its information panel.
So before we select the bear, let's look at the bottom here. There's the amount of money that the zoo is taking in, or has, and then the up arrow means it's taking money in, and the down arrow means it's losing money. There are conservation credits. This is, you earn conservation credits by doing things that help the environment, like releasing animals to the wild. And you can use those conservation credits to purchase certain animals. Some cost money, and some cost conservation credits. In other words, you can't get, say, a lion from a conservation group until you've proven to them that you release animals to the wild. Then we have the number of people in the zoo, and you can see that a few of them are leaving. The number's going down. And the rating of the zoo. This is its overall rating of reputation, and you can see it broken down, the animal rating, conservation rating, guest education, and so forth. And then the general happiness of the guests. Over here on the right hand side, there's a free look camera. We can undo and redo things. The temperature, which is in Fahrenheit, the weather, the year and time. And then these are a bunch of controls that we'll learn about as we go. But right now what she wants us to do is to select a bear and enter
This is where you can
the
find
camera.
out all kinds of information
Right.
about your animal. The most important thing being its overall welfare.
There's the welfare.
You'll learn more about animal welfare today as we go through your objectives. But for now, let's enjoy this magnificent animal. Why don't you select the camera at the bottom of its information panel?
So we click on the camera, and that shows us the grizzly bear.
See now, this is a fantastic way to get a close look at your animals. You can also get this view of an animal by simply double-clicking on it. Okay, when you're
Cinematic
ready,
mode
let's pop over to the other side of the
orbit
zoo
mode.
and take a look at the lions. I've marked their location for you to find.
So now we have to find the lions. And you're going to have to forgive me, I'm still kind of learning the navigation here. Oh, we need to get away from the camera. Here we go. Okay, and you can also use the W, S, A, D keys. And Q sinks you down and E brings you back up. And here is the lion habitat. And there
Panthera
we
Leo
are.
Leo. All the West African lion to you and me. Lions are the most social of the big cats, and there can be as many as 40 lions in a pride. Although prides of that size are pretty rare. As Bernie would say, those lions are awesome. Which is precisely why I handle the training instead these days. Anyway, how about we get started on those objectives? Come on, let's head
And
over
here
to
you
an
can
empty
see the
habitat
welfare.
and see what needs doing there.
The welfare is based on how well it likes its terrain. And you can see it's got enough shelter and it has the terrain features it wants. It's got enough area, number of square feet, And it's got the right amounts of short grass, long grass, sand, and so forth. There's the environment, how many plants it has, and so forth. It's actually not super happy with the coverage, and we could get away from, we could remove a couple of these plants and that would make it a little happier, but we're not going to do that because she didn't instruct us yet. Enrichment is things like toys to play with, like this little toy zebra, pinata, right? And so that's it's enrichment. And let's select this lion over here again. And then there's the stud book. That's kind of how it's been mated and who its mates are or its parents. Its social needs, and then its genetics. And you can see it's a small individual, not going to live a long time, doesn't have good longevity, but it's very fertile and has good immunity. And then you can decide if you want to mate it and so forth. And so these are visiting players. See, this is what confused me. These are not actual visiting players. These are avatars of the visiting players. Supposedly, if you wave to them, you'll get conservation points or something, but I'm not going to play around with that because we are trying to follow our goals. So our objective is to locate the empty habitat, which she has outlined for us right here. And here it is.
As you can see, it's a lovely space for animals, but it's missing a certain something. Well, two somethings. Warthogs. So I'd like you to adopt a pair of them.
All right, so now we're going to adopt
animals,
warthogs.
We need to open the animal market, which is in the animal trading section.
So there's the animal trading section. And
There
there's
we
the
are,
animal
a
market.
pair of perfectly splendid warthogs for our zoo. Just click on them and select Adopt from the side menu. Normally the animal exchange would be full of animals, but I've emptied out the market while you learn how it works. The last thing I need is you accidentally ordering a dozen elephants.
So, this is what I mean. In the tutorial, you can't do what you want because they leave things unlocked. And so, or they leave things locked, things aren't unlocked. And so you can only, like, adopt the animals they say. You can only put the things into the shelter that they allow you to put in.
It's automatically placed in the trade center, where they're held until you're ready to move them into their habitat, which, as it happens, you are. So how about you move them into their new home?
So we're going to select them both, send them to the zoo, and click into the habitat.
When you ask for an animal to be moved into a habitat, your caretakers will go to the trade center, collect your animal, and deliver them to your selected habitat. I've marked the trade center's location, so let's go and watch the caretakers in action.
The trade center's location is right here.
Well, as you can see, those caretakers don't hang about. They'll move those animals to their destination
And
as
there he is
fast
in the
as
box,
possible.
right? So they basically
Of course,
carry the animal in a
normally we'd have to
box.
place the animals into quarantine before moving them into a habitat. But I am assured by a person of good standing that these warthogs are in the very rudest of health. Right, let's get the warthog's habitat finished up so we can keep them nice and happy. You see, each animal in the zoo has an overall welfare statistic, basically how happy they are. And that overall welfare statistic is itself comprised of 4 different areas: nutrition, social health, habitat, and enrichment. Luckily, if you select an animal, you'll bring up their animal welfare information
see it
panel,
there.
which we saw earlier, where you can see how they're doing. That way, you'll know exactly what areas need to be addressed. Don't worry if that's a lot to remember. You can always check the Zoopedia for more information. Let's start by making sure we're taking care of the warthog's nutrition welfare. To do this, we'll need to place a food station and a drinking station. Now, each animal requires a different type of feeding station. And for the warthogs, it's a small feeding trough. So let's add one of those and a water bowl.
So you see, again, these are the only habitat facilities they allow because they're training us. So we can only put in what they allow. So that's why I'm not going to worry too much about the aesthetics in these tutorial missions until they've unlocked things and allow us to play the game normally. But we're still going to try to do some nice things. So for example, the people are going to be watching these warthogs over here. So I'm going to put the food trough and the water bowl near there so that the animals will be near the people.
Let's add a lovely mud bath for the warthogs to roll around in.
And see, they've now unlocked something. There's a mud
their
bath.
enrichment welfare, specifically their toy enrichment welfare.
Let's put it Here, if you hit Z, you can then rotate and spin it if you want. There's no point really to doing this, but some things have a front and a back, and so forth. Alright, so we will place it down.
Nice work.
Right
You've
click,
got a knack for this, I see.
deselects the item,
Our
and so it
contractor
goes
had to
off
leave
of
in a
your...
hurry, so this place is in a feral
it's no
state.
longer on the mouse.
Unfinished thingamajigs and what's-its all over the shop. But the first thing we need to finish is the ostrich habitat. It's over near the hippos.
And so there is the ostrich habitat. So here we are.
Before we actually start building our ostrich habitat, let's pause the game. Just click the pause button in the bottom right corner. That's
So
more like
P
it.
will
A
also
quick
pause
break.
and unpause.
Sometimes it's a good idea to pause the game whilst you're doing something which requires your concentration, because it'll stop the zoo spinning out of control while you're looking the other way. Let's keep the game paused while we get this ostrich habitat built. Okay, job number 1 here is to add a habitat gate before we complete the barrier. Every habitat needs a habitat gate. After all, how else would the keepers get in and out? Just make sure it's hooked up to the path so the keepers can reach it.
So now we look in barriers, and the only thing we have available is the habitat gate. And as you can see, it auto connects to the path in certain places. Here it doesn't, but here it does. So where it is blue, it works.
Right.
Click it.
Let's complete the perimeter barrier so we can adopt us some ostriches. I've marked out an area for you to use, so I'd like you to finish off the perimeter using the brick barrier.
So now we're going to go around the outside, following the glowing lines. And one of the things you can do here, they haven't really showed this, is you can change the length of the wall and the length of the wall segment, and that'll change sort of the number of these like brick columns. These are short, right? And so if you want to repeat that, you don't want to do a really long one, right? Because then it won't put those little columns in there. So if we want to repeat the small increments, like so, and then I'm just trying to see how far this is from the road, so we gotta get a little closer.
Good
And now we're connected up.
work.
So we have a
Remember,
completed habitat.
before you can place animals in any habitat, it has to have a full loop of connected barrier. Now, you've probably noticed that guests can't actually see into this habitat at the moment.
Yep.
At least not without a stepladder. But seeing as they're banned, I'd like you to select a piece of barrier and swap out the brick for a glass barrier, so the guests can see in.
So there's glass.
There we go. Adding in more windows gives guests even more opportunities to see
it's
the
not letting
animals
me
in
do
the
any more,
habitat.
just this little tiny
It's always
one.
best to make sure the guests can get a
Right.
good view into a habitat from the path they're walking on, because it makes them happy, and because this would be a pretty terrible zoo if they couldn't. The last thing we need to do is to add a donation box. You see, when guests enjoy the view of an animal, they'll make a donation. Just make sure you put them in easy-to-reach places, like near a viewing point. Donation boxes are one of the main sources
And
of
see, you
income
can
for
only
the
place
zoo, so
one.
make
You can't
sure
place more
you
than one.
remember them. By the way, as well as pausing the game, you can speed the game up by clicking on the fast forward button. It'll run everything at 2 times and 5 times faster. It can be useful, especially if you're waiting for money to accumulate or for animals to be delivered to your habitat. Personally, I use it when I'm waiting for a brew to finish. All right, you've finished the habitat, so it's high time we adopted those ostriches, don't you think?
All right, so now
Let's
we're going
get
to
4
adopt
of
the
them in here.
ostriches. And again, all that's available are the ones they want us to have. All right, these sorts of restrictions will be relaxed in the later parts of the game. So we're going to select them all and send to zoo.
While we
there.
wait for them to be collected by the caretakers and brought to the habitat, you should get it ready for them. Add a suitable feeding station, water station, and an appropriate food enrichment item. It's often best to place things like enrichments and feeding stations near to the habitat perimeter, so guests can get a really good view of the animals.
So again, Z and then move the mouse. That's not a very good spot, is it? You see, that's the sort of thing, because of the clipping, that I would mess around with. I don't know how you can, let's see, we can delete it. Let's delete it and try again. Somewhere where it's not going to clip. So I don't really like clipping. Let's see if this works. Looks like it's going to clip almost anywhere we put it. Oh, there we go. That doesn't clip. And then finally, a little feeding toy. And we have achieved bronze.
Oh, good to see the ostriches have somewhere they can really stretch their legs. Did you know they can actually run at 43 miles per hour? Oh, heaven forbid they ever escape. The speed camera fines alone would bankrupt us.
Well, Bernie certainly seems impressed. Did he do his speed camera joke? Every time
Yes,
we
he
get
did his
an
speed
ostrich.
camera joke.
So, now we've made the ostriches' lives a bit better, let's do the same for the keepers, shall we? To make it easier for the keepers to feed the ostriches and hippos, we should build a new keeper hut. Keeper huts are where the keepers prepare the food for animals, so they should be placed near to the habitats to make sure the keepers don't waste their time walking when they should be looking after the animals.
Alright guys, I think we're going to stop this episode here. We have achieved bronze status, and we've got the beginnings of this first zoo, and we will do silver and possibly gold in the next episode. I hope you've enjoyed. Until next time, I am Scrapperlock, and this is Planet Zoo.